All right, got another one for you. And this time we're going to be taking a look at a very, very solid system championed by Sergei Tviakov. And Grandmaster Tviakov, he's one of those names which may not be an absolute household name in chess, but to chess professionals, before Ding Liren and Magnus Carlsen started going on their long streaks, he was the guy who had the most consecutive games without a tournament loss. And a huge staple of his repertoire is this Queen D6 Scandinavian that we're going to see in this game. And this is kind of a cautionary game because it's not very long and Queen D6, it's an interesting move. It's provocative. And basically, when I'm teaching my students who are playing white to play against this line, I just tell them as long as you're getting a tempo off the queen on d6 at some point by placing a bishop on f4, that's going to be that key idea and memory marker to pick up time and get you where you want to be. And my opponent in this game did not know that rule, and he got a bad position quite quickly, and the position just kind of fell apart. So let's look at one of the main lines here, and I believe knight f3 immediately is fine, a6 or c6, and then g3, and as we can see, white is holding down this position without too much trouble, and then we got, say, d5, and bishop f4 is undoubtedly coming, and white's been doing quite well from this position. So very straightforward, very easy to play, and basically all you have to remember is g3 with a follow-up of bishop f4. Now, the other line, I believe it's bishop c4, and then knight g to e2, and once you handle that, you get bishop f4, because with the knight on e2, it defends the bishop on f4, and this is another variation which could be considered. So that's what I would recommend for you if you're playing white in these situations. Knight f3 was played by my opponent, and I give him the opportunity to transpose, but this is a common thing that I'll see when I'm playing the Alekhine or playing the Sicilian. Like, people love playing king-pawn games so much, they try to make this structure work versus everything, and it's just not quite feasible. You shouldn't be trying a one-size-fits-all approach with your openings unless you're like a London system player, and even then, that only lasts until about move 12 or so, and then you're going to actually have to play some chess. So keep this in mind. If you're going to be a true e4 player, you need to have a single line prepared for pretty much everything that has a name that black has for best results. So bishop g4, giving a little pin to the knight. Keep that tension, no reason to trade. When you have this dynamic, like I don't want to clip this knight because it's simply going to develop white. So notice how this is a dynamic of strength to where this bishop is pinning the knight. I can capture it anytime I want, but this knight has absolutely no bearing on my bishop as a purely defensive piece. So white is going to have to make a concession in the pawn structure with something like g4, assuring that his king isn't going to go kingside if he wants to get rid of this pin. Now e6, simply defending f7, making a solid position. And any time in here, I expected knight b5, where I was aware of this queen b6 idea, where you hold down the pawn and you can be annoying x-raying b2. And you can also just always drop back to d7 or d8. So bishop d2 was played, and now I'm starting to see the opportunity after knight c6 to drop into d4, and my knight's also controlling e5. So I've got absolutely nothing to worry about here. g4, and I see that we're both going to be going long. Now, the engine likes me playing h5 and challenging the structure a bit, and trades ensue. Well, unless white goes knight e4. But I wasn't the biggest fan of that. My opponent is not making the best decisions. So when you see your opponent just kind of making moves with no real plan or emphasis behind it. Make a solid move that you need anyway, like bishop e7, before giving them changes to focus on, and they're probably going to continue to go wrong. Like knight h4, it's not the best move in the world, but it's what I'm talking about. That he needed to find something to do. He got that itch. So that is now the space left behind. So now my knight has an absolutely excellent square and bothers the queen. And this queen e3 now gives me ideas. I'm like, okay, queen c6. This is flexible, x-raying on the king and keeping an eye on this rook on h1 as well as the f3 square. I potentially want to put a piece there. So we normally see queen c6 as a landmine square because if the king's on e8, you have that type of tactic, which is often seen in, Chess Cup and Puzzle Rush. But my opponent grabs, and that kind of ruins the dynamic potential that he had. And now the rook's eye is wide open. And it's interesting after f4 because if you're a pause the video type of guy, it's a question of what move would you play here with black, because there's quite a few that are quite good. I honestly just went for simple development and improvement here with bishop c5. And I mean, you can see that the eval doesn't change that much. When I go bishop c5, it's like, yep, you're still winning. Another idea here is knight takes g4, whereas if h takes, the queen's placement is good. But I mean, it's like, okay, I love this. Bishop c5, 3.7. Knight takes g4, 3.4. And then we've got b5, which is also 3.7, where if bishop b3, a5, and this is very engine-like play. Humans don't typically want to throw their pawns in front of their king like this when we're completely safe. But all three of these have roughly the same eval according to the computer. So that was the only reason I really chose this line. Is one, we hadn't had a queen d6 Scandinavian yet, and I believe it's an interesting and extremely solid opening choice for black. And then two, I felt this tactical sequence was interesting. At depth 24 with Stockfish 11 on Lichess, it's roughly evaluating these three lines as the same for black, but I mean, it's one of those things. I'm a development guy, and I like building tension. So bishop c5 was what I played in the game, and after my opponent played knight e4, hopefully you see it, knight b3 check, and that's going to be all she wrote for that one. And yeah, that'll do it. Stay tuned for more of these in the series, because pretty much each time I'm sitting down at Lichess, like this morning I woke up, I wanted to eat a little something and take a break before I do my daily workout, and what better way to digest some food than to play a game and do a little analysis for you guys. All right, thanks.